The Pokemon Go world has been utterly shaken. So recently, it was reported that Niantic is going to be selling off their games division, and the number one buyer is a very controversial company, and I do think we need to talk about this. Alright, how's it going everyone? Count Jinsula here with a brand new Pokemon Go video. I hope your day is going really well, and let's get right into it. Alright, so a lot of players' wishes are coming true. Niantic is going to be selling off Pokemon Go and their entire games division to a completely different company. This is something that players have been voicing for a very long time, but it just seemed like it was unrealistic. Why would Niantic get rid of their biggest cash cow? Why would they try to get rid of Pokemon Go as a game that they are developing? I think a lot of players would have wanted this, considering a lot of the mishaps and a lot of the design decisions that Niantic have made over the years. But I really feel like the grass is always greener on the other side, and now that Pokemon Go is up for sale, the number one buyer, which is Scopely Games, they are possibly going to be a lot worse than Niantic ever could be. Recently, it was broke by Bloomberg.com that Niantic is looking to sell Pokemon Go and their entire games division for nearly $3.5 billion. And the number one buyer is going to be the Saudi Arabia-controlled Scopely Inc. The article states, a deal could be announced in coming weeks. The price being discussed is about $3.5 billion, according to one of the people. Any agreement would involve the Pokemon title, as well as other mobile games, according to the people, who ask not to be identified because the discussions are private. There's no assurance that an agreement will be reached. The Pokemon Go game was a global phenomenon, but the company had trouble duplicating its runaway success and cut staff and canceled some titles in development in 2022 and 2023. Its Harry Potter Wizards Unite game was shut down in 2022. Representatives of Niantic and Scopely declined to comment. Scopely is owned by Savvy Game Group, a subsidiary of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. So let's talk about this. Why do I say that this is very troubling? Well, first and foremost, let's talk about Scopely Games. Let's talk about what they have been doing with all of their mobile games. Like, this is not the first time that they would be buying a major game off of another studio. Some of the other games that they have under their portfolio include Marvel Strike Force as well as Monopoly Go. Both of those games used to be under a completely different developer, and they were bought off from Scopely Games. And I think for a majority of the players who play those games, they will see that once the game was moved over to Scopely, it was a disaster. It was basically what turned the games into just a pay-to-win, just travesty. And you know, a lot of the feedback that I'm seeing is that the same could probably happen to Pokemon Go. It just seems like the consensus is that this would actually be worse for Pokemon Go, and it probably will spell the doom of this game. And I'm not just trying to be a doomsayer. I'm not just saying like, oh, this is going to be the end of Pokemon Go. I think there's a lot of potential here for there to be some really positive effects on Pokemon Go. But at the same time, I do feel like, for what it's worth, I'm going to kind of miss Niantic. You know, for all of the different flaws and all of the different poor design decisions that Niantic have made, at the very least, they've kept the game somewhat free-to-play friendly. I mean, if you compare it to most of the games that are out there, like Raid Shadow Legends and I guess Marvel Strike Force and even Genshin Impact, like Pokemon Go is actually quite free-to-play friendly. You don't need to ever spend money in this game to get ahead. You could pretty much have every single Pokemon you could ever need for PvP and raid battles, and you do not ever have to spend money in order to get those Pokemon. And I really feel like Niantic did have a pretty decent monetization model. Even though in the past couple of years they've gone a little bit more pay to win, I do feel like the overall for Pokemon Go is that it's always been a game where you could just enjoy it casually, going out and playing the game without ever having to spend the money. There's very few paywalls in Pokemon Go. Yes, there are certain gacha mechanics, which is probably where they get their revenue from, but overall, you do not need to spend money to get every single Pokemon in this game. That's something that I always appreciated about Niantic and Pokemon Go, and it's very possible that that aspect of Pokemon Go is about to go away, and I'm very concerned about that. But another thing that I'm also concerned about is Scopely Games itself. I think this company has had a lot of controversy just strictly based on where it's located. It's a company that's based in Saudi Arabia, which is a country that obviously has a lot of political baggage. A lot of people just do not agree with a lot of the policies and a lot of the ways and human rights different issues that that country is known for committing. And I do think that that is a big deal. Doesn't matter where you stand in terms of politics. I think if you feed money into a company that is owned by a country that violates a lot of civil rights and human rights, I think that is always going to be something that will actually be on players' minds, and it could be a reason why players would quit this game. I totally think we need to recognize that, and ultimately, it's just not a good situation, in my opinion. Now, with the introduction of a new company into Pokemon Go, I think the best case scenario would be for this company to not do that many sweeping changes. And hopefully they could keep Pokemon Go the way it is. Maybe they could add some new features that are going to be a lot more free-to-play friendly. I highly doubt that, considering their track record. But I also think there's a lot of potential here for them to roll back some of the things that did make Niantic a lot of money, but for some reason they decided to nerf it. And I'm specifically talking about remote raids. Of course, remote raids are still a thing in Pokemon Go, but they nerfed it to the ground. They made it so that it was incredibly difficult for you to do a whole bunch of remote raids. And I think if this new company were to come in, they were to see how much money Niantic was making with remote raids, maybe they will roll back some of those changes that were incredibly unpopular. I really do not know what could happen, but there is that possibility that the game could change for the better in some ways. Now, a third thing we got to talk about is, of course, the Pokemon Company as well as Nintendo. How much are they going to be involved in this sale? Like, are they going to veto it if it doesn't seem like they're going to like the terms of the deal? Are they going to veto it just simply on the principle that it is a Saudi Arabia company? I really do not know, but something you do need to consider is that the Scopely group, or whoever it is that is looking to purchase the games division of Niantic, they actually have a pretty sizable stake in Nintendo. So it's very possible that because of that, Nintendo will just give in. It looks like there is a strong possibility that the Pokemon Company is just going to bend the knee. I really do not know what's going to happen, but at the very least, I do know that Nintendo and the Pokemon Company have a very strict hold on the Pokemon IP. So even if this new company were to implement very unpopular changes, or if they were to overly aggressively paywall the game, it still has to get the blessings from the Pokemon Company. They cannot make those changes without the Pokemon Company approving of those changes. Now, some people will argue that the Pokemon Company just simply do not care about the Pokemon IP to the degree that we all hope they do, and they're going to allow those changes anyway because they themselves want to make a lot of money. But I disagree with that because I think of games like Pokemon TCG Pocket, as well as Pokemon Masters EX, and all the other games that are out there right now with the Pokemon IP. You could definitely tell there is a level of consumer friendliness that is behind those games because they're trying to cater to children. At the end of the day, Pokemon Go is meant to be a kid's game. It's not meant to be a game played by young adults like you and me. It's a game that they want families to enjoy. They want to use this game to build up the Pokemon brand. And if there is a lot of over-aggressive monetization, if the game IP is going to get hampered by some of the practices from this Saudi Arabia company, yeah, I do think Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are going to step in. So yeah, that's just my one little hope. I think that even when it comes to Nintendo, I think they've been vetoing a lot of things regarding Niantic making decisions around Pokemon Go. That's just some of the rumblings that I've heard from developers. It just seems like there's a lot of things that are in place that are checks and balances. So I do put a lot of my hope in that. So yeah, even with all this said, where do we go from here as Pokemon Go players? Well, it's kind of a crossroads right now. We really do not know how this new company is going to handle Pokemon Go. We do not even know if this sale is even going to fall through because, like I said, the Pokemon Company might veto this deal because they just simply do not like the direction that it could go. And when it comes to Niantic, it just very much seems like they want to move away from game development, which I could totally understand because everyone that I've ever talked to over at Niantic, it just seems like they don't necessarily care about the gameplay. And this makes sense to me because if you think about Niantic as a company, it was originally part of Google as part of their mapping technologies division. And I think that's where they want to focus in their energy. Like, they want to make products, not games. They want to create technology around AR and mapping and different things like that. They do not necessarily care about creating an amazing Pokemon Go experience. Pokemon Go has always been a means to an end for them. They use Pokemon Go to further the technology that they want to build. So in my opinion, yeah, maybe it does make sense that they want to finally retire their game division and sell it off to someone else to continue developing these games. And maybe this could be a blessing in disguise. Maybe there's going to be developers out there who are actually going to be passionate about making Pokemon Go a better game, and it's going to become a better game. But I do have my doubts, considering the history behind Scopely and all the different things that they've done with other games. I'm just really worried that Pokemon Go is going to go down the same direction. But yeah, this is the beginning of a new chapter for Pokemon Go. I think once this deal goes through and it gets announced in a couple of weeks, I think it's going to make everything completely different. I see a lot of people online, on Reddit and social media, talking about how they're already transferring all their Pokemon to Pokemon Home, that they're going to be quitting the game. This is like the last straw for them, and for a lot of those players, maybe it's because it's political. I can totally understand that. There's definitely a lot of people who are criticizing Saudi Arabia as a country because of this deal. I also think there's a lot of players out there who just simply do not want to see Pokemon Go get developed by anyone else other than Niantic. Even if they have their gripes with Niantic, they just do not feel like it is right for any other game studio to take the reins on this game. So yeah, it's a very interesting time. In spite of all of these people just outright saying that they're quitting the game, I still feel like we're in a bit of a wait-and-see mode. There is a high chance that Pokemon Go is going to be very different. It could become a better game, honestly. I think there is a high possibility for that. There is also a very high possibility that this game is only going to cater to whales, people who spend boatloads of money every single month. I really do not know what's going to happen, but the future is very unclear, and who knows? This is probably the end of an era. I can foresee that even for myself and my YouTube channel that I might start covering other games if it comes down to it. Oh, and I guess like one last thing that I'm concerned about is the future of live in-person events. I know this is not going to affect the majority of players. A lot of people just simply do not care about them, but I'm thinking about things like Pokemon Go Fest, Pokemon Go Tour, as well as the new Wild Area event. Are they going to continue having them in Japan and different places? Are they going to be exclusively in Saudi Arabia so that they could drive tourism to that country? I really do not know what's going to happen. That's another thing that's up in the air, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Saudi Arabia is a very wealthy country, and this company is also a very wealthy company. They might pour a lot of money into these live in-person events to actually draw a lot more buzz around Pokemon Go so that they could add more revenue to that country. I do not know how it's all going to operate, but yeah, that is definitely a question mark that I personally am wondering what's going to happen. Yeah, this is all very interesting. This is all very big news, and I'm really curious to see how it's all going to pan out. Hopefully it'll be all really good. I do not know if it will be, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about down below. I probably will be making more videos around this topic, especially if the deal goes through and we actually get an official announcement. But yeah, let me know your thoughts regarding all this. I would love to know what the community is thinking. If you're one of those players who are going to outright quit the game, I would like to know why. And if you're someone who is very hopeful about the game as a result of this, I would like to know your reasons for feeling that as well. Yeah, let's have a great discussion because this is definitely really big news and I think it's definitely worthy of a big discussion. So yeah, if you ended up enjoying this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. Don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And real quick, let me give a shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel, the absolute best way you could do that is always going to be by joining my Patreon. And if you become a paid Patreon member, I will add you to my Pokemon Go friends list as long as the game is still around. And that means if you want to play Pokemon Go with me with remote raids and with the friendship system, then yeah, make sure you go and consider joining my Patreon. And of course, if you want to support my channel in a completely different way, you're always welcome to do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula. I'm on the platforms that you see on the bottom of your screen. Make sure you go over there and give me a follow. That's going to be it for this video. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one.